करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। गुकारस्त्वन्धकारो वै ऋकारस्त्वनिवर्तकः अन्धकारनिरोधित्वात् गुरुरित्यभिधीयते। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवागुंसस्तनूभिः वशेम देवहितं यदायुः। स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। So we will just chant the last verse of the Upanishad, number 24. Yaha shatarudriyamadhite. So I'll just do it once instead of repeating it. Yaha shatarudriyamadhite so agniputo bhavati surapanat puto bhavati sabriha brahma hatyayat puto bhavati sa suvarnasteyat puto bhavati sa kritya akrityat puto bhavati tasmad avimuktascha mashrito bhavati atyashrami sarvada sakrit वाजपेत अनेन ज्ञानपाप्नोति संसार आवरणनाशं तस्मादेवं विदित्वा एनं कैवल्यं फलमश्नुते इति. You can just look at the meaning of the sentence and then briefly look at, the translation of the sentence and briefly look at the meaning of the sentence. And then we'll revise the whole Upanishad. So the translation of this verse number 24 on page 203 says, the one who recites the Shatarudriya becomes purified as by fire, freed from the sin of drinking alcohol, freed from the sin of killing a brahmana, freed from the sin of stealing gold and from the results of all commissions and omissions. On account of that, one gains refuge in Lord Shiva. One who is free from all duties, i.e. stages of life, for example, a renunciate, should recite this always or at least once every day. By this one attains the knowledge that destroys samsara, the endless life of becoming. Therefore, by knowing the self, one attains the fruit of liberation. One indeed attains the fruit of liberation. So this repetition is not a mistake. That is usually done, not always, but usually done in pointing out that this is the end of this particular text. So That's what that is. So, a little bit of a introduction, not a very much of it, about this Shatarudriyam. This Shatarudriyam is what's called the Rudram, and you may have seen it chanted quite often. Should be chanted with swaras and require, it takes about anywhere from 12 to 18 minutes depending upon the speed at which you are doing it. If you're doing at this speed, which we have done before, which I'll just give you a demonstration, then we will take about maybe 14 minutes to do this. Om Namo Bhagavate Rudraya. Om Namaste Rudramanyava Utota Ishave Namaha. Namaste Astu Dhanvane Bahubhyam Utate Namaha. Yata Ishu Shivatamam Shivam Babhuvate Dhanuhu. Shiva Sharavya Vatayano Rudramridaya. Yate Rudrashanura Ghora Papakashini. Taya Nastanuva Shantamaya Girishanta Vichakashi. Yamishan Girishanta Haste Bibharshastave. Shivan Giritratan Kurumahi Gumsif Purushan Jagat. Shive Navachasatva Girishat Chavadamasi. Yathana Sarvamit Jakada Yakshmagum Sumana Asat. Adhyavocha Dadi Vakta Pratamo Daivyo Bhishak. Ahigascha Sarva Anjambhayan Sarva Artuyatu Dhanyaha. It's a very small sample, but you can get a gist of exactly how the Rudram should be chanted. So this Rudram is an important set of mantras, and it is said to be important because for several reasons. By the way, this is the main topic that I have chosen to teach at the retreat at Sailorsburg a week from today, on the 18th. So it will be Sri Rudram. And it is a possibility that after we get back from the retreat, when we choose the next text, this could be one of them. And so I'm deliberating on that. It's an important text because it appears in all of the various branches of the Vedas. So the various 4 Vedas, and each of the 4 Vedas has sub-branches. So there are really hundreds of branches. So this particular mantra, Rudram, which is also called Shatarudriyam. Shatarudriyam means, Shata means 100. So 100 doesn't mean exactly 100, it means the entire Vishwarupa of Ishvara, the entire span of things in the world. Thousands, Sahasra Shirsha Purushaha, like in the Purusha Suktam. So the Sahasra doesn't mean exactly 1,000, it means thousands. You know, when you say that, my gosh, that was a protest, there must have been thousands of people. That doesn't mean that like there's only 2,000, it could have been more. So like that also, Shatarudriya means hundreds of mantras towards Rudra. So this is called the Sri Rudra. That's an important one. So there's a lot that we can say. Obviously, I'm going to talk in a lot of detail in the retreat. By the way, just for your information, I'm told that the retreat would be made available for people to either stream or see later for a nominal fee. I think that the ashram has some kind. I didn't know all of this when we were setting it up, and also I didn't want to encourage people to just do it online, because I want people to go there along with me. I don't want to be the one that is staring at an empty room like I'm doing now. So that's the whole idea of a retreat. But those lectures, if you are interested in, I think you can approach the main Arshavidya Gurukulam website, and there must be some way to find out how to register for a fee of these classes. But in any case, I think it's very likely that I would repeat that in future classes of as we teach here. This Rudram is an important one because Swami Dayanand used to say this, and this he made it very clear to us, that there is a big gap between what is talked about in the Shastra, in the spiritual literature of Vedic literature, and what we see around us as the vision of our life. There is a big gap between them. This gap between them is not real. It is just that there are some obstacles on the way. The best example of that really that your vision deteriorates, and finally you see an ophthalmologist, and you're not sure what the news will out to be. It's very possible the ophthalmologist will say, I think it's you're getting some deterioration in the various parts of your eye, and this is not going to be better over any time soon, and pretty soon it's very likely, very possible, you may lose your eyesight. This is one kind of news. The other news is, your eyes are just fine. It's just that there is a film called cataract which is growing in the front of the retina, and which is impeding your vision. So you say, okay, so what should we do about that? So he says, cataract operation is very, very simple. I've done thousands of them. So you just make an appointment, and I think I have a feeling that your eyesight will be completely okay. So the gap between what the Shastra says and what my experiences of life are is like a cataract. Not like it is some basic defect in my vision. It's just that I don't see it because there is some obstacles like cataract which is preventing me from seeing the truth about things. And those can be operated on. And operated on by you and I together. There is a cooperation. Sahana vavatu, sahanao bhunaktu. And so this is the whole teaching. And some parts you have to do more. Some parts I have to do more. Some parts we do it together equally. One of the parts that you have to do is you have to do a prayer to your own Creator. The Creator that makes it possible for the knowledge, the lack of knowledge, the obstacles, all of those is part of the creation. And if you do not involve the basic Creator itself in the removal of the obstacles, your job will be much harder. Why not also approach him and say, can you please help me? The Guru is also helping, I'm also working, but we need your grace to make this happen. That grace is the result of learning to chant Rudram and learning the meaning of Rudram. So this is exactly all another way to look at it was Swami Dayanand used to say, this is kind of like Prayaschitta Karma. Prayaschitta Karma means a action which is done, a remedial action is called Prayaschitta Karma. You know, it's like supposing you have an important thing to do, an important place to go to, and an important event that you are attending on a given day. The previous day, out of your own foolishness, you ate something that doesn't suit you, that you have really a vast reaction to it, and you can hardly even contain the food inside of you. It's a complete upset. Next morning you have to catch a flight, and you're not even sure whether you can make it because you're in such a bad shape. Well, without even going to a doctor, you can at least try to go to the pharmacist and say, here are my symptoms, here's what happened. Do you have something that will alleviate the effects of my problem that I've created by eating something that didn't suit me? So the guy says, yes, it looks like your symptoms will respond to do this, but then you have to do this a couple of times, and I think by the evening you should feel better. And I think you can fly tomorrow. Not a doctor, he's a pharmacist, but he's had a lot of experience in doing so. So those pills that you take to alleviate the symptoms of something that was already started, and to alleviate those is called remedial action. So in that sense, the Rudram is a remedial action. Okay? And it gives you a lot of benefits and so on and so forth. It is well known. And so those you can read about in this book, and I will not go through all of that. That is the meaning of this last verse. That despite reading and understanding the 23 verses, if you are still not quite there yet, and all of us will not be there yet, it will be a miracle if we can just say, aha, Kaivalya Upanishad did it for me and there's nothing more that I need to do. I'm done. That happens, then you're okay. But otherwise, it helps to do Rudram. That's what it says. Okay, that's all I was going to say about the verse number 24, not going through the details of it. Actually, because we are going to tackle the various details about Rudram. There's a lot of depth in it, a lot of wisdom contained in it, but it has to be slowly brought out and understood. So don't have time to do that this time. And especially because we will have a couple of opportunities very shortly, one in the retreat hopefully, and then possibly some classes that we'll have a chance to visit Sri Rudram. That being the case, I think what we can do in the short time that we have is to do a quick revision of the entire Kaivalya Upanishad. I always find revision to be very useful, as you know. I've said that before also. So this is, let's do that. Okay. So here, what the Kaivalya Upanishad starts out with is a relatively mature student who has already discovered how Vedanta can help you approaches a teacher. So here is the situation where through either some previous contacts, happenstance, whatever, that happens to us all the time, you will come across the wisdom contained in the Vedas with the help of the Vedanta, and you say, this makes sense. I really want to learn more about this. And what Vedanta says, as you know, is that there are, in fact, it's interesting, one way to look at it is, if you want to summarize it very quickly, is that there are the whole world's experiences you can look upon as consisting of 5 things. One is, the 3 of the 5 is the reality about the world and you together, by knowing which you will be free. 3 of them are the reality. By knowing exactly that form, all of your life's problems will be gone. Those are Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam. Sat Swarupaha, Chit Swarupaha, and Ananda Swarupaha. It's the same Vastu, but has 3 different aspects of looking at it. One which is timeless, one which is the very essence of knowledge, and one which is unlimited. The very essence of I know. That is the Vastu. This is the Parameshwara. This is the nature of God. Then the 4th and the 5th are ignorance of that fact and the removal of the ignorance of that fact. Ajnanam and Jnanam. So the first 3 are the Vastu. That's the reality. The 4th one is not knowing it. 5th one is knowing it. So the 3 of them is Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam. Then you have Ajnanam and you have Jnanam or Moksha. These are the 5 things. So this mature person that approaches the teacher already knows this. Somebody has been kind enough to explain this to him, and he is aware of that, but he wants to now know this very well, because it looks like it has the elements of truth in it. He's convinced about it, but he's not really to a point where he grasps it completely. And in order to do so, he has to approach someone who's an expert in this and get their help to do so. So, he does not just ask anyone. He asks around to find out who are the people who have done this, if you quote unquote undone this, and are experts at this. I want to go to them. I remember, I think it was Swami Dayanand who was saying, if you wanted to just learn violin, you could even take a book. It's not easy to learn violin by a book, but you can at least try. And you can slowly progress to a point where you can start to have the various sounds from the violin. But if you wanted to really become a virtuoso, the best amongst the people that know, best amongst the violin players and appreciators, you have to be under the tutelage of a master. You cannot do that all by yourself. The books can only carry you so much. But somebody like Yehudi Menuhin or someone else who is an expert, you'll go in India also, people that want to really learn classical music, they don't just do it by the local books and teachers. They have to go to some experts and live with them. This is what is called gharana. So the gharana means there is a setup, like an ashram. And there the teacher and all the students, they practice years together. Only then you really become a virtuoso. So this person says, I want to go to a virtuoso. So there he approached this Brahmaji and says, Sir, I know quite a bit about this. I also know that this is something that requires, so that's those 5 things. It requires knowledge. I am lacking that clarity of the knowledge. Can you please teach it to me? So this is the first verse. So the teacher also knows. So this is one of the, there's several things, aspects to this. One is that this knowledge should not be broadcast to everybody. It is not the right thing to do. It is not something, it's an extraordinary one, and it is not something that you will appreciate if you don't have certain qualities. Very much similar to Swami Dayanand used to say that have you ever seen the head of the Department of Physics at Berkeley, who has really become an absolute authority on quantum mechanics, knock on your door and say, would you like me to teach you quantum mechanics? Because, first of all, that doesn't help. Because knocking on the door, people can knock on the door and say, I'm a Mormon priest. Here's my card. Please come and visit us in the Mormon temple. Actually, that also doesn't happen easily, but it does happen. And see if you just close your eyes and listen to the organ and see whether you want to become a Mormon. That's all possible. But an expert in quantum mechanics doesn't approach you and say, do you want to please learn some physics, and I want to teach you that. So what needs to happen is an application needs to be made by people that are already convinced that that's what I want to learn. And then, in fact, it's the other way around, where the university looks at you and say, you need some more background. You don't have enough of a background. But you are the one that has asked for it. So similarly, we are also told that please don't teach Vedanta to just anyone, because it'll be wasted and it's beneath the dignity. You're just making a fun of it. That's not what it is all about. You have to be very serious about it and interested in it and qualified. All of those kinds of things. So the teacher knows that this person who has approached me with the kind of attitude I think would be good to teach to. The other thing that Vedanta says, or scripture says, don't teach it to anyone that doesn't deserve, and you must teach someone who deserves. Make an effort. If you discern someone has the ability, make an effort to convince them that they should learn. Anyway, so there the teacher accepts it and then provides three different things in verse number 2. It says Shraddha Bhakti Dhyana Yoga. So perhaps the most important one which is there right away is Shraddha. Shraddha means you say, you're ready for this because this will take a little while. This is not done overnight, and you will find days where you'll be lost. But if you know the final goal, you will not abandon it. Like quantum mechanics, you cannot say, this quantum mechanics and all these kinds of advanced physics really doesn't make any sense. Well, I tried to do it 1 year and I didn't quite get it, and I think it's all hocus pocus. No. Means that if other people have already understood it, there are books on it, it's not hocus pocus, but I don't get it. So may I have the patience to get it. This is called Shraddha. So it just means that this is a verifiable belief, not a non-verifiable belief. Number 1. Then the Shraddha leads to Bhakti. Bhakti means dedication. Absolute adherence to what it needs. Just like in the case of playing a violin, that is a karma. This is a jnanam. Even in karma, you cannot just, this is what happens. The teacher says, hey, what happened? I haven't seen you lately. He says, oh, I've been pretty busy. And busy with what? Oh, I don't know. I just, we went to some parties and so on and so forth. Say, yeah, but you were supposed to practice violin. I know, I have. I'll get back to it one of these days. The teacher says, this is not the right student. Right student is the one who never misses a class. This is called bhakti. Bhakti means unwavering devotion to a cause. This I must do. This is called bhakti. And the third one is dhyana yoga. And dhyana yoga just means that because this is something which has to do with the quality of your mind, the purity of your mind, and the understanding of the subtlety of it, you develop a certain mind that stays with you. And if you are used to just dancing around and this, that, or the other, and you cannot get your mind to really obey, you need to develop it. It can be done, but you have to get there. This is what is called dhyana. Dhyana yoga means that one which is based on the quality of your mind, your ability to control your own thoughts. This is called dhyana yoga. Then in verse number 3 and 4, another qualification is highlighted by the teacher, which is sannyasa. So sannyasa means all of this is true, but in addition to this, you need to give up some things that were beforehand, erstwhile they were dear to you, but interfere in your lifestyle and are therefore relatively useless. This one you have to really do it on your own. So, this is the thing Swami Dayananda used to say that. He says, if you make Vedanta as one of many things that you're interested in, it's not going to work. Not going to work. It's not as though you, and it just reminds me, I remember when I was around 60 years old and I was just thinking of, should I retire and so on. So I read a very good series of articles in the Wall Street Journal. I still remember that. They had interviewed all the people that had been retired for a while and they wanted to find out what makes a happy retirement versus unhappy. And what they said was, it was interesting, that really was a confirmation for me and also a revelation for me. What it said was that once you retire, and I see this actually amongst the people, they have gone from a single-minded job that they were doing before to now being completely free. So what I find these people doing is that you select like 6 things that you're doing. Learning a new language, learning how to play piano, doing half a marathon, visiting Africa. So you say, I've got all these things that I want to do, and every day I want to do a little bit of this and a little bit of that and so on. And if you look at after 3-4 years, and you find that such people are not happy. Why not? Because you are not really giving enough attention to a few things that really require you to be absorbed. Dhyana yoga. Instead, what this article said was, it is best if you find a couple of things that absorb you. But maybe not for the full time, not the 8 hour, otherwise you are back to doing a job. But there should be 1 or 2 interests at most, generally speaking 1, where you are happy to spend 2 or 3 hours a day. You're attracted to it, you come back to it. You may surround it with some other things, that's another thing, that's okay. You want to do exercise or learn to play the piano, that's okay. But your main focus should be doing something. And those people are very happy. Those are successful. And I was very fortunate because I already had Vedanta after my retirement to really focus in. And in fact, if anything, I have really spent a lot of time on it. And yes, I have other things that I want to do and so on, but this is my main focus. So then what you do is you give up your fascination. This will happen to me. I have to pat myself on the back. I was a pretty good tennis player. And there was some pressure from my family to start playing golf because I have 2 sons and they're both good golfers. And my wife would often say that, why don't you take up golf? You'll have so much fun with your own sons and it'll be good for them too to play with their dad. And so on. And I looked at it and I said, okay, how much time is it going to take? And when I grew up, I was a pretty good sports person. I was a cricket player and ping pong and so on. Whatever I did pretty well. But I needed to practice a lot. I cannot play golf or tennis if I don't have to practice. I don't have the time to practice. Gone. Never took up a tennis racket after that. Never took up golf. For my exercise, just to keep my body, I just do elliptical and so on in the morning, but that's it. As a pleasure, as a kamya karma, no. So this is what is called sannyasa, where you should be ready to give up things. If you don't have that ability, then the mind is ruling you. You're not ruling the mind. Because you've got to really understand, this is what I want to do in life. It requires a lot of lot of effort, a lot of thinking, a lot of continued focus. And that's not possible if you are a dilettante. We are going a little bit of this, little bit of that, and so on. Not possible. So this is what verse number 3 and 4 talk about. Number 5, verse number 5. It starts to talk about the use of contemplation in your study. So contemplation means to slow things down and have the ability to be absorbed. And here, just to make a point, I'm just revising, I think I've already talked about this. My teacher, with whom I spent the maximum amount of time in my life, other than my own immediate family, never once used the word concentration. Never. This is what I learned from Swami Dayanandji, is that his use of words was very deliberate. You will never even see him ever use the word hate. And also not concentration. That conjures up pressure. I cannot concentrate. No. Instead, contemplation requires the ability to be absorbed into a subject matter of your own choosing. We get absorbed without noticing it. Anytime you are reading a book, a very interesting book that is taking you through some history or something like that, your mind is absorbed. Same thing when you're watching television and there is some story that is being told in video and it's interesting and it appeals to you, you're absorbed. It's not like absorption is something. It's just that in terms of what you want to do, you don't have the ability yet. It will happen automatically. So this is what contemplation is all about. So verse number 5 begins with a baseline preparation for contemplation. Number 5. Then number 6 talks about what to meditate on. What is it that you are, because, and this is the thing we have talked about in all the previous classes, including the Kaivalya Upanishad, that the hallmark of Vedantic Nididhyasanam is not the absence of thought. This is not the yoga that we are going after. This should be very clear. What it is, on the other hand, is to bring some basic truths that are being told to you and you are listening to it, and be absorbed in those thoughts. This is what is called Vijatiya Vritti Rahitaha. Vijatiya means that it should be Sajatiya. So this is, Sajatiya means in the same family. Like, for example, Atma is talked about as Anadihi, one that has never begun. It's always been there. Nityata, constancy. So Nityata, constance, being constant, and Anadi, not having a beginning, are of the same family of thoughts. So that is okay. But Vijatiya means different families. Like, for example, you're contemplating on the self, and all of a sudden you're not talking about baseball. No, that won't do. You need to select indeed. So, this is what is called Savikalpa Samadhi. So, the Savikalpa Samadhi means that Sajatiya Vritti. Then, once it turns, if you keep doing it for a while, it turns into Nirvikalpaka Samadhi. So, what to meditate on, how to meditate, and what to meditate. And also, in number 6, for whatever reason, they begin with the meditation on the Nirvikalpa. Actually, the way to do that is to say that the ability to look into the truth of the meditator itself. This is what is called person rather than the personality. is the Nirguna Brahma Upasana. It's called Nirguna Brahma Upasana. I think we've talked about all of this. I'm just quickly going through that. And if it is not possible or easy to do this, and it isn't, the main reason it is not easy is that my tendency to think it only encompasses things that are formful. That I can visualize. I can tell the person is young or old, black or white, formful. Even the minds, how are you feeling? I'm a little upset. Form. So I'm used to looking at things that are formful. But my reality is I'm formless. And so I have to develop the ability to think about formless. You mean not with a particular personality? Exactly. That personality is without any personality. How is that possible? This is what I have to think about. So this is that. If it is not possible to do, then you look at Saguna Upasana, which is given in number 7. All right, at least start with the form of Parameshwara. So this says Uma Sahaya. So this is called Saguna Upasana. And so there you see, so Uma Sahaya means, this is a good way to look at it. It means that you do a contemplation, but where even if you are looking at a formful thing, you don't lose the sight of the fact that even a formful thing is accompanied by your consciousness. So, for example, if you say this is a table, you have to see this is not just a table, it's my table consciousness. Everything, the table consciousness, chair consciousness, carpet consciousness, camera consciousness, light consciousness. Consciousness is common to each one of them. My attention must be to this beautiful fact. So even though it's a Saguna Upasana, there's a technical term in Vedanta called Adhyatmika Vidya. This is a very important thing. Adhyatma Vidya means, if Vidya means knowledge, Adhyatma knowledge. Adhyatma knowledge means any thinking in which your own self is very much in your thoughts. It's your self-oriented thoughts. Like, for example, I'll give you an example of all this. Supposing you are looking at a ring and admiring the very shape of a ring, but it is better if you look at it as a golden ring. You look at it and you also admire how gold can appear as a ring. So your thoughts are very much aware of the basic element, the basic vastu, the very basic metal called gold. Your thoughts are not just the shape of the ring, which it could be, it should be okay, but you're also bringing gold into it. My God, look at the shine. What a lovely one. I wonder how it was made. I wonder how the gold can get transformed. You don't lose sight of that fact, that everything is golden. And it never tarnishes. This is why it's called Hiranyagarbha. Hiranyagarbha means always gold. So therefore, anytime when you look at things, if you don't involve as your own Atma as part of that, it is not Adhyatma Vidya. The important thing, Adhyatma Vidya is a very beautiful word, important word. So even in the Saguna Upasana on number 7, you look at the self as an integral part, not the word integral, but as one of the aspects of the guna, the various gunas that you see. Then number 8, it goes on to say that this self that you are beginning to be cognizant of, by the way, it is not just your own self, it is the self of all. So this is where Anantam, Anantyam, Ananta Rupaha, Ananta Swarupaha is brought out. That it is only one self, not multiple selves. That's number 8. Then verse number 9 and 10, it says that there is nothing to be done, but there is something to be known. Praptasya praptihi. And in fact, you cannot do this by karma. Like, for example, if you already have your glasses in your pocket, it's even visible to you. That sometimes that happens. With me, what happens is that it's interesting. I'll show you this. So I have this Fitbit watch. I'm an Android person, not an Apple person. And in fact, my son was one of the instrumental people in Google to acquire Fitbit. But I've known about Fitbit long before he did that. So now Fitbit is part of Google, And as you know, Google Watch has already been um, has been announced. It will be shipped in fall of this year. Anyway, I have this Fitbit pad. I'm going all around for no reason. I have this watch. Now, either I put it in my pocket or I put it on my wrist. Usually I put it in my pocket because sometimes the strap doesn't really fit very well and so on. I have some issues with that. So I put it in my pocket. Once in a while, I do have it on my wrist. So, for example, I'll show you. I'll just put the straps in and there you go. I have my watch. Now, here's the issue I want to talk about. Praptasya prapti. I am really ashamed to tell you how many times I am looking for my watch while I have it on my wrist. You know why? Because I usually don't have it on my wrist. I have it in a pocket. And I go from one pocket to the other. If I change my, my pants or something, then I transfer it to the another pocket. So it's always in the pocket. If I cannot find it, which happens a few times, I'll say, I wonder where I put it. Maybe it's over the other pants that I was wearing. Which one was I wearing last night? So I go upstairs and look for it. It's not there. And I says, I don't know where I must have been there somewhere. It is there right in front of me and I am seeing it. Amazing. So here only the knowledge will cure this ignorance. No karma, no amount of karma will really find it. Just a glance, if you want to call a glance a karma, go ahead and do that. That's not what we are talking about. So this is the subject matter of the 9 and 10. And then in verse number 11 onwards, the very important subject matter of the identity between the individual and the total is started. It was hinting at it throughout. It's not as though it's a brand new thing. But now it specifically addresses it in the form of a Mahavakya. Tattvamasi, Ayam Atma Brahma. And through all of these, this is called Mahavakya. So Mahavakya means the equation. Equation between Ishvara, God on one side and the individual on the other. There is an equality, there is an equation. And you don't look for absolute similarity. There is no absolute similarity. But there is implied similarity. So the example given is that there is the ocean and the wave are not the same. Because if you're describing a wave, you're describing a wave. If you're describing the whole ocean, that's a different thing altogether. But essentially they are the same. They are not any different. See, this is why I'm having some problem with my straps. Oh, finally I got it. So that's why I don't even put it on most of the time. So this is the identity that has to be. This is what is called Bhagatyaga Lakshana, where the Tvampada, you, and the Tatpada, that, are equated. So similarly, a room space is told, hey, you are the same as the total space. You know that space that touches the moon, that is the same space that is touching you. So this is an identity. Well, there it doesn't mean much, but here it means a lot, that the similarity between the essence of Parameshwara, of Ishvara, of Brahman, and the essence of the Jiva are the same. What is the essence? Timelessness. Satyam Jnanam Anantam. So this is what is called Mahavakya Vichara. Mahavakya means this is the greatest sentence ever. This is the ultimate equation. Nothing can beat this, because if you are clear about it, you're done. And so this whole section, and then starting with verse number 11, looks into this issue. As part of that, in verse number 12, there is a doubt. Then how come I feel different? What is the cause of it? How do I diffuse this? This is what is called Advaita. How do I dissolve the differences between me and the world? Dvaita. There it is said that the difference is a illegitimate one. It's an illegitimate problem. It's not really true. And for that, the viveka between the three stages of my life is discussed. This is what is called avasthatraya prakriya. Prakriya means a method of analyzing. And so the avasthatraya means the three avasthas. What are those three avasthas? Avasthas means three stages. Jagrat avastha, waking state, dream, and deep sleep. So the next few verses talk about the similarity of the three, and all three of them are roles that you play. So that means you are different than the roles. And so then the number 14 goes into, all right, if this is true, then what is that role-free person that you're telling me I am? What's my relationship with the role? I am identifying with the roles. That one is clear to me, but who is it that is identifying with the roles? Because I only see myself in roles. I don't see myself independent of the roles. How am I supposed to find that out? And how will I now be the independent person without the roles? But this is then discussed in the next few one, where the identity between the Tvampada and Tatpada is explained, and the analogy of the dream as being an illegitimate identification is discussed. The applicability of the dream towards the waking state is observed. All of that is discussed in these ones. And then finally, the result of doing this vichara, this thinking, is given in number 17, the reward of seeing the essential identity. And then in number 18, the further aspect of the self as being unconnected to the world is discussed. Asangaha, asangoham. Asangoham means just like again the same kind of thinking that went into the dream analysis or can be done through the room space versus the total space analysis is brought out. That in you are, even though the dream is in you, but I am different from the dream. So then in verse number 19, it explores this further and says, you're telling me there are two things. One is the person, the other one is the personality. So supposing you want to say the dream is the personality, then I am the dream, I am the person who is dreaming. There are two different things, so there is duality. Then number 20 says no. This is not duality. There is no duality, because the one of them is real, the other one is an imposition. Like if you're looking at the mirror, they are not two people. One is kind of a reflection of the reality. There is still, even though you have the experience of seeing two people, you and your reflection, in reality there's still one only. And so it is just a imposition of the second one on the first one. That's all. And so this is how it progresses to number 21 and 22. In number 21, it says, yes, 21 is an interesting one, that it says that there is a relationship between Ishvara and the world, which is very beneficial to me. See, so it is very beneficial to understand the way the world is with respect to Ishvara. How is it beneficial? Because Ishvara is able to create and manage the whole world by his mere presence, not being actively involved. There's a lot of discussion. Swami Vidyatmananda just likes this part of it. And he says, for example, that you know how difficult it is to run something, household. So just so many things involved. Money is involved, health is involved, responsibility, worry. If you were to run the whole cosmos, you can imagine the kind of responsibility that Ishvara would have to have. How many hands is he going to need? How many powerful entities? Because there's lots happening. He must be really tired, is what Swami Vidyatmanandaji is so fond of saying. And the answer is no, not the way you think it is. Ishvara is not tired at all. It is not his effort. It's just the presence of things run all by themselves. It's like a king. Well, the real example, which is so beautifully done, is like that of a very powerful magnet. By the very nearness of the magnet to all the various things that are going around it, they all get They all get moved into the right direction. The magnet is not seen to be moving at all. It's just the intrinsic power of the magnet that allows these iron filings and so on to rearrange themselves and move and cling to this, that, or the other. There's a lot going on, but nothing going on. Another example given is that of a king, that you establish what needs to be done as your own culture of the kingdom. Then people are all busy doing it. You don't have to do anything. All you've done is you have shown exactly what needs to be done, and you are supporting them emotionally, but that's it. Here there's nothing to be done. And these lessons of the relationship between the God and the world should also apply to me. It's almost like Ishvara saying, can you please learn how I run my show? So I can say, well, that's you are the almighty and all-powerful, all-knowing Ishvara. I'm just a small person. I can't do that. I've got to really do this. He says, yes, you can. Yes, you can. Learn how to do that. Learn how just the fact that you are unaffected by the world, you're okay, that you're complete by itself. You don't need it. So then, really speaking, so all these are what is called sajatiya vritti. We talked about that earlier. Sajatiya means in the same family. So in this case, the family is of the thing that you are really complete without the world. Asangoham. This is one part of the family. These are all thoughts for a meditation. Another part of the meditation family thoughts is that I am not the karta, I am not the bhokta. It's all the result of prarabdha karma that things are happening. I am where I am without really getting involved. It runs the show by itself. This is the lesson that Ishvara says, learn that from me. Be me, be like me, where you're involved but you're not involved. This is what is called the rising above all of that. So we went through this when we were having the class. And immanence and rising above it. All of that was done. So this is the verse number 21. Then verse number 22 is an important one also, and we talked about this in the previous class today. This is what is called apurvata. So apurvata is a very important thing that we should really grasp, and helps. It certainly has helped me a lot. So apurvata means that I can see everything, but no one can see me. You can just even say this is the secret. Remember, in the very first verse, number 3. Adihi bhagavo brahma vidyam varishtham sada sadbihi sevyamananam nigudham. Nigudham means it's secret. It's the funniest secret there is, most profound and the funniest secret there is possible. This is what is called apurvata, and we went into this in more detail in the previous class. Purvata means, and the same thing applies for Ishvara as for me. I see everything. But I am not an object like everything else to be seen. So when I say I see everything, that means I am. So the presence of the I is what is called Swatasiddha. It is already there. There is no doubt about the fact that I am. What I am is a doubt. This is where the mistake is made. The fact that I am space is not everybody knows this. But the thing is that through ignorance, I take myself to be the room space. There's no such thing as a room space, but there is a thing called space, which can be seen as a room space. This is called apurvata. This one he says that we go back to the very beginning of it. There are 5 things. Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, and then there is Ajnanam, and then there is Jnanam, which means moksha. If one can grasp this, one is free. So with that, our revision of the Kaivalya Upanishad is complete, and I congratulate you for sticking with this text. And it's a text very dear to me because for more reason than one, because I had a hand in developing this text with Swamiji in, I think it year 2008 was it, and so went through this in a lot of detail. And also I would say that this is one of the things that I decided to base my class on, is that the ideas contained here can be revised by going through this book when you have a chance to do so. So you can set it aside for a while, but then revisit it after a while, and you will see that when you revisit it, things will freshen up, in fact get better and more clearer to you. So having a book like this is in your library would be useful. So I'm not sure that everybody we started with is still there, but my good wishes for those of you that persisted in the study. I think this will be beneficial to you. And with that, this is our last class of this in this time slot, Kaivalya Upanishad. And as I've mentioned to you, I'm not quite sure exactly how we're going to go forward with what program. I've gotten your surveys back generally. If you still want to send something back, let me know. And then I have an opportunity to be with Swamiji, and I will discuss exactly what to do next and how to do it. And when I come back, then we will decide together, and we'll see what needs to be done. So with that, I close the class today, and not sure exactly when we will meet. And with that, we say goodbye. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor Ma Amritam Gamaya. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. So nice to see you all, and good that we had this common time to reflect on things that affect both you and I. I'm also a teacher, is also a student, so it was good to have you, and thank you so much for um, for making this into a formal way of learning. So best wishes to you, and hopefully we'll see you sometime in the future. Hari Om.